Welcome to Money Talk with Aaron Ricketts, presented by Ricketts & Associates, 3245 North Adrian Highway, Suite F. The opinions voiced on Money Talk are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Aaron's back with us in the studio. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, John.
We got more things to talk about. We talked about some stuff last week about the end of the year. Now we got retirees doing some things because they do some stuff around this time of the year, don't they?
That's right. We got to keep this going because this is important to you.
Yep, absolutely.
Forget about these things or they procrastinate and wait till the end of the year. The very end of the year, and we're talking about how retirees can make required minimum distributions pain-free.
Okay, cool.
I like the heading. I thought it was kind of silly enough to read.
But it is important.
It is. It's very important. So we're talking about if you're 70 and a half or older, or you have an inherited retirement account, you need to take your required minimum distribution by December 31st. And one issue is it's December 31st, which, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, December 31st. Sometimes companies and how they, do their administrative work, they have fewer people working and doing stuff such as this and processing requests for people to get their minimum distributions. It's important that you don't wait till the last week or the last 2 weeks of the year to get your distribution out to you, or at least in a timely manner. So if you miss that date, December 31st, you could face a tax penalty. And that tax penalty is 50% of what you were supposed to take.
Ouch.
Yeah, it could be rough. So don't do that. Take your minimum distributions, and we'll kind of go back a second and talk about what I'm talking about, minimum distributions, which is the requirement by the government. The IRS has a particular rule that you have to follow that says when you reach the year that you turn 70 and a half, that you have to take a certain amount from your retirement plans. And there are some exceptions, but for the most part, everybody at that age, for the most part, most are retired at that age, so they don't have earned income, or they are not contributing to their 401k at a workplace, so they have to take their minimum distributions. It's absolutely required, and inherited IRAs are a little bit different, but they still require that distribution. So required minimum distribution, or RMDs, as they're commonly known, are for just those individuals 70 and a half and older that have to take retirement funds or take money out of the retirement funds, such as IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and there's a handful of other type of accounts that they may have. The amount that you take every year is based on a specific calculation, and I'll tell you, the first year at 70 and a half, you have to take about 3.65%. So if you have a $100,000 account, that's $3,650 approximately. And what they do is they measure that account or measure that amount of money you have to take from the value of that account on December 31st of the year before. And so like this year, if the market or your account is up, 10 or 15 or 20%, you're not going to have to take that out this year. You have to take out whatever it was on December 31st of last year, which was probably a lot less than 10, 15, 20%. The S&P 500 last year was down about 4.5%, somewhere in that world. So this year's RMDs probably will be about the same as what you took the year before, because every year it's indexed to, increase. So that 3.65 this year gets up closer to 4% and then gets past 4% year after year after year. So typically we have to take more and more money out of there. The IRS, again, has longevity tables, which you can certainly look up on the internet, and it'll tell you. Some of them go by a percentage just to give you that number because it's a little easier than using the divisor method, and that's what that is. It's a divisor. It's 26 point something, that first year. So you take your account, divide it by that 26, which that's what the IRS has said how long you're going to live. 26 more years when you reach 70 and a half. Not a bad thing, right? It puts you up there a little ways.
Right.
So keep that in mind that that the longevity tables are set by the IRS. Those haven't changed, and I don't know that they will. I'm sure at some point they could or should change because, we are living longer, and they don't want you to be forced to take all your money out. But even into your hundreds, there still is a longevity table. So it's down around half. You got to take half of your account balance, during those years, but you've been forced to take out a lot of money throughout those years. So just so you know, that's how it works. Now, what I suggest, if you haven't done this already, you should make sure you know where all your IRA or your retirement accounts are. And when I say you know where they are, make sure that you know that they are individual retirement accounts. They are pre-taxed accounts. Sometimes you might have a CD at the bank that's in an IRA. You have a brokerage account that's in an IRA. You have a mutual fund account that's in an IRA. You might even have an inherited account from your parents or a grandparent, something that was passed down from your, somebody that's an inherited IRA. You need to take inventory of all those and make sure that you don't miss any. Here's another issue, or I would say a common mistake, but people do make this mistake. They will think that their Roth IRA is a part of their other IRAs, and they'll count that as having or think they need to take a required minimum distribution. And this is how that happens. Let's say you have 3 retirement accounts. One is in a brokerage account, one is at a bank in a CD, and one is at a mutual fund company. So what I often tell people is that one that's at the bank, you could add up all your required minimum distributions, take it from one account. So maybe we should look at the account that's earning the least. I assume your investments are doing better. They better have over the last 10 years, right?
Right.
Than a CD, what they're paying. Take that RMD or minimum distribution, all of it from one account. You can do that. But what happens sometimes is people will add in that fourth account and think the Roth IRA is required to take money out of that, and they'll do the calculation and take all that money from that CD. Well, I had this happen a few years ago where somebody came in and I think it was their 3rd year of taking money out of their accounts. I actually became their advisor, and I was able to, through our system, get their statements from the last few years. And just by chance going through them, I saw that they were taking distributions or more than they needed to from one of their brokerage accounts. So I assumed that they were, because they took it one lump sum, I figured they just took it, but it was an odd amount. It wasn't, $10,000 even. It was $10,634.16. I thought, where'd they come up with that number? So we started talking. They showed me, well, they have this account that are IRAs, that they need to take money out of. Well, one was a Roth IRA. So they were taking extra money out that they didn't have to. And it was about $3,000 or $4,000 extra. So if they hadn't talked to me, they'd have probably just kept taking out $3,000 or $4,000 extra. Not that that's a horrible thing. It's just that it's possible they didn't need to take it out. They could have continued to defer that account, deferred that amount, those taxes paid. But I was just kind of surprised, when I saw that. But I want to make it clear when we're talking today that you got to make sure that all these accounts are the type of account that requires a minimum distribution, especially if you're doing it on your own. What's nice in our business is that our brokerage companies, our platforms, they provide us all that information. About the 2nd or 3rd week of January, just coming up, right, in a month and a half, we will have 2020's required minimum distribution information already. It's in our system. Now, your companies, they provide that to you also, but often they won't get that data out to you till well after summer's over or late summer. Or they, if you call them, you have to go through a process to get that information. And I know banks, they do the same thing, but, depending on the size of the bank, could be a smaller local community bank, they might have to do the calculation by hand for you. But important that you just want to double check and just look at that stuff and make sure that your math is correct and that you're taking out what you're required to take out. A couple of exceptions to this rule that's based on longevity or your particular age is if you have a spouse that's more than 10 years younger than you, you can use a different table and it'll allow you to take out less from your account. Some people, it's not that big of a deal and they don't care. They just take out what their age required distribution is. But if you have a spouse that's 20 years younger than you or 30 years younger than you, you really should be looking at that and possibly taking advantage of that, especially if you're not using the money, because most likely that spouse is going to outlive you and might outlive you, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, especially if it's a lady, right? Men happen to, leave this earth before women. We still have about a 5-year, or less longevity than women. So keep that in mind. And I also said, and I'll make it clear, you can take one amount from 3 different IRAs, one required minimum distribution amount from 3 different IRAs from one account. You don't have to take them one from each. I've been in business 19 years now, and I have not seen one time where people that do that, because we have several clients that do that. We are a big proponent of a product or an insurance product or an investment product that's paying you income, income for life. Maybe it's a good idea to take the minimum distribution from your other account and let that account grow and grow and grow, because the amount of money that you're getting on that is based on the highest value of that account or what that account gets to. So keep those things in mind. I'm sure advisors out there that might be listening, or you can ask your advisor that question. Are you doing this? Are we trying to grow that other account that's going to provide me income for the rest of my life and take my minimum distributions from other accounts, however that's working for you? So here's another final thing I wanted to say about 401k plans. So if you're still working and contributing to your 401k at 70.5, you do not have to take a minimum distribution from that account. But if you have an IRA separately, you have to take a minimum distribution from that account. So it's important that you know that. And talk to your accountant about that too. And the accountant, if they're not certain, they can look it up for you and make sure that you are taking your minimum distribution from your other accounts. You should be getting notifications for those, so make sure you're following through. You cannot take, say you have a 401k from another business, you're still working, you cannot take a minimum distribution from an IRA that satisfies your 401k minimum distribution. There are 2 separate types of accounts. So you have to take the minimum distribution from the 401k and then separately from the IRA. So keep that in mind. I know there's a bunch of rules around this thing. A lot of people roll over their 401ks to IRAs, which is probably a better thing because you can get better service at the IRA level often than you can at the 401k level. There's different reasons for that, but and you also usually have better, I should say better investment options, but a lot more investment options, and maybe you can find better investment options.
Well, Aaron, I mean, if they need to figure out which directions the path goes.
Yeah. Give me a jingle. My number is 265-3540.
All righty. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, John.
That's Money Talk with Aaron Ricketts, presented by Ricketts Associates, 3245 North Adrian Highway, Suite L. The opinions voiced on Money Talk are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Join us once again next week for Money Talk here on 103.9 WLEN.